Okay, everybody, welcome. I am so pleased to welcome our guest tonight. Nik Walker is your fellow Adlerite, those of you watching. Nik trained with us as part of our program with NYU. And Nik is currently leading the Broadway cast in Ain't Too Proud. They've obviously been off, as the rest of Broadway has been, for obvious reasons, but Nik remains the lead in Ain't Too Proud on Broadway. Nik has also performed on Broadway as Aaron Burr in Hamilton, as well as in the touring company. Nik is also the playwright behind the Bloody Boston trilogy and co-host of the talk show The Chaos Twins on Broadway World. And he has a movie podcast called Little Justice, streaming on the Broadway Podcast Network. All of us at Adler cannot be more happy for Nik and his success. He is proof that good things happen to good people. He is such a wonderful person and an amazingly talented actor that we're so proud to call an alum. Please join me as best you can through the chat. You can we'll hear your clapping in the ether, but please welcome the great Nik Walker to the Harold Clurman Lecture Series. Thank you, Nik.
Everybody, this is just, yeah, it's so crazy because, like, so you have to understand when Adler was at 31 was 27th Street, and y'all had in the hall, I'm sure you guys have them in the building now. There would be all the Harold Clurman lecture pictures, right, like in black and white, that we would all see and be like, oh yeah, it's all these people. And the idea that I'm doing one of them is, like, as I said to Mike and Tom, is terrifying to me. I'm very happy to be here. It's very cool.
It's such a pleasure to have you, Nik, and we can't thank you enough for spending some time with us tonight. Thank you, and I know our students are thankful and they're going to appreciate this very much. So students, as you may recall from your emails, as we go here, you can go ahead as faculty too, if you have some questions you want to put in the chat. We may not get to all the questions, but we'll do the best we can. But please put them in the chat, and as we go through this, we'll do the best we can. We're going to start off by I'm going to throw Nik a question here, which maybe you could just talk a little bit about your time at Adler. You just talked about it a little bit, but maybe your time at Adler/NYU and what you, and your journey from there to today, and some of the things that really continue to resonate with you in your career nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, so Adler, and I've said this, in every interview I've done, I've truly always tried to give it back to NYU and Adler specifically, because Adler was my foundation, and the training that I got there, and some of the teachers that I met there, and the people that I met there, were just incredible, and people that I stay in touch with today. There was a group of us that stupidly, for some reason, I don't know who did this. Dale Tornicky, I know you're on this chat or in this room, and I know you can help me with this. We got called the Dude Bros. I don't know who did it. I don't know whose idea it was. It wasn't our idea. I feel like it was somebody else's idea, and they called us the Dude Bros, and then that name stuck. But that group, we did it to ourselves. See, Dale says we did it to ourselves. I don't remember that right. But it was five of us, and that was like my crew, and those were my boys all through college, and even now, I mean, we still have that group chat going. I mean, like, it really was this time. It was also crazy because my sister, not my real sister, but like basically, might as well be my sister, Jess Nurse, who's another Adler alum, ended up coming to NYU, coming to the studio. And like, it was like having family there. It was just, it was the memory of Adler was always like this warm, incredible experience. And so I think going out into the world after Adler, I left Adler after 2 years, and I went to the classical studio at NYU, and then I did a semester at Stone Street, and then I got out. But what I remember about what I was able to take from the studio was just a sense of self. You get out there and you very quickly realize that, at a certain point, like, talent and all these things that we hold high in high esteem really don't mean anything when you're out just trying to pay your bills. Do you know what I mean? The only thing that's going to keep you warm at night is the fact that you know you're a good person. And Adler had a very strong sense always of, and I think Tom has said this always, growth as an actor is synonymous with growth as a human being. And that's what Adler did. I was truly humbled by Adler. Adler made me understand that there was a world that had nothing to do with me, that there was a world that was bigger than me, but that also that I belonged to the world, that I had a place. And that was really a huge thing to help me walk into the industry and into the world with, was that founding. So yeah, for sure.
Very cool. And I think my memory is right. Your amazing and equally talented wife, Sarah, you guys were students at the same time, correct? And Sarah actually was in our conservatory, our 3-year conservatory, while you were at NYU. You guys did overlap, right? Or did you meet?
We did. And it's funny because we hated each other at Adler. We
Is
hated
that
each
true?
other. It's so, oh my God. Yeah, yeah. We did not get along. It's like it's actually hysterical because like I mean Adler, yeah, I would not have met my wife without Adler. And but she was working the front desk when I was directing Hamlet. And I would always, I was such a, I won't be anything but real with y'all on this call because Adler family. I'm going to be real. I, as a 22-year-old, absolutely smelled myself a little bit. Absolutely had a little bit of an ego on me. Thought I was hot shit. And she was working this front desk, and her thing was like, at 11 o'clock, it's time, whatever time it was, to close down the studio, it's time to go. And I was like, I was trying to direct Hamlet, so I was very in it, and it's like, no, could we, like ignoring her at the front desk when she's trying to be like, guys, you need to leave. And it was just the rudest thing, and so I should not have done that. Like, should have totally just respected when she asked me to leave, but did not do that. But yeah, we met there and we just stayed in touch. And 5 years later, we started dating, and and 9 years later, we're married. So it's
Wow.
pretty crazy, man.
It's amazing. That's a great story.
Oh yeah.
You know, so often you hear actors with all sorts of backgrounds talk about um, whatever the great value of their training may have been, that there's so much that once you're in there, once you're in the business, once you're in the industry, there's things you almost really can't learn until you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Was that your experience? And if so, can you expand on that a little bit in terms of some tips you might be able to give your fellow current Adlerites in terms of some things that it's hard to learn while still in school?
Patience.
Mm.
I wish that I could have told my younger self, um, to not put so much pressure on myself. I When you're in school, because of the nature of what you're doing, it's this, it's very hard for it to not be this competition, and to, you're trying to get all of every gem that people can throw you. And for me, I was like, great, I want to hit the ground running. I want to get out there and, avoid the cold shower and do all this stuff. And the thing is, like, there is no, as we all know now, in this period of time that we're in, there's no avoiding the cold shower of life. Life is going to life. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no way to get around that. And unnecessary pressure to be, perfection. This idea of, yeah, I'm going to go out and hit it. I had this whole plan about how I was going to go and like burn down Times Square and create my own Broadway and do like my own theater and like, and I get out there and everyone else is booking things and I'm not booking nothing. You mean like I booked? I mean, I did. To be fair, I did theater at the Hangar, which is Dev, who I know teaches here, and Peter Flynn. They were very nice to me and gave me a job at the Hangar. And then I did some children's theater for like 6 months. I was in the back of a 9-foot by 13-foot van, traveling the country, getting dressed in a cafetorium. Do you know what I mean? To go and perform. Um, but like my friends were booking TV shows and all this stuff, and then and I would finish a gig, and then I was working as a shoe salesman at City Sports. Do you know what I
Wow.
mean? And like and you and then I had my first big break at La Jolla. Like I had my big show, and as soon as that show ended, and like I'm talking, I was like the third lead. Like I am, it's red carpet opening. It's like big, all the press. As soon as that show closes, I'm right back selling shoes at City Sports in Rockefeller Center. Do you know what I mean? So like it's this thing that like if you're chasing this idea of I've made it, you're going to crash and burn so quickly. You need to take that pressure off yourself and understand that you are enough. You're enough. You're enough no matter what you book, no matter what you do. You're enough just because you're alive. That's I think one thing we've learned very much in this time is it's your life that makes you valuable. It's your breath. It's your presence on this earth. That's what gives you value. That's it. All the rest of it is just stuff that we've made up to make our world make sense. Do you know what I mean? So just taking that pressure off myself. I wish I had done that because it really led to a lot of dark days, a lot of dark days, you know?
Yeah, Rachel, a freshman at Adler/NYU, essentially just asked the question. I think she typed this in as I was asking you the question. Was pretty much the same question I just asked you. So thank you, Rachel. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Well, and I'll even clarify about that too because I think specifically for freshmen, I think the thing that I wish I had known was to enjoy being a freshman. Like everyone when everyone had these amazing plans for things they wanted to do. Jess Nurse and I started a theater company together. We were all and that's what you do, right? You create, you enjoy, you want to do all the things and be all the things, but like also it is so wonderful that you're students. Like that's a great thing to just be in a space where you can just cut off and learn. Like, because that's what you forget when you get out there, right? When you get out there, there's this idea that you have that like, oh yeah, you've done it. Now you're supposed to know everything. You're never going to know everything. You're always supposed to be a student, always. So this time when like you're actually legally a student, like enjoy that. The rest of the time you have to remind people like, hey, I'm learning this. Like perfect example. I went from Hamilton to Ain't Too Proud, both really hard shows. I can't dance for crap. I can't dance, guys. So the fact that I've done these two shows is insane to me. They had to really teach me how to dance, and with Ain't Too Proud specifically, I was on Hamilton on tour, and I was trying to get home because I'd been out on the road for like 2 years. Sarah's back home. I don't like being away from her. Um, Obviously, it's my wife. And this, Des, who was directing the show, texted me and was like, I want you to come in for Ain't Too Proud. And I was like, now, again, y'all won the Tony for choreography, and I cannot do what you guys do. Um, and he was like, no, but just come in and I think this part will be something for you, good for you to try and see how it fits on you. And to be honest, I love my role because my role is like a 3-hour monologue. Like, so Dominique Morisseau wrote the book and she did this amazing job where this is a whole side tangent, but I promise it comes back to the original point. She did this amazing thing where, with most jukebox musicals or musicals about, bands and musicians, they do this, they just kind of throw the music up there. And then like, if there's any semblance of a story, you're lucky. Dominique had this brilliant concept where she's like, cool, I know you're asking me to write the story of the Temptations, but what I'm going to give you the story of 5 young Black men in the civil rights movement who just happened to have created this group. That comes first. So the story is actually integral. So they needed somebody who could act, who could tell that story, but also dance. I could not dance. I bombed the dance audition. But what they did was they sent their choreographer out to the Hamilton tour. So the last 5 weeks of Hamilton were 5 hours of dance in the day and then Hamilton at night. So like I was right back to being a student because now I have to learn. terrifying. But you just kind of get to a place where you're like, yeah, I accept that, maybe I'm allowed to fail a little bit. Maybe I'm allowed to not be right, not look good,
Mm,
not have the answer. That's, I think that we don't often allow ourselves to live in that feeling of uncomfortable, of not knowing,
yeah.
why would we want to? So, it's yeah, it's a lot. It's a
That's
lot.
so great. Thank you so much, Nick. Miles, who's a first year in the 3-year conservatory, of which your wife is alma mater, says here, when working a quote survival job, how do you work out the funk of not wanting to be there, but staying motivated to keep going?
To me, it all comes back to your joy. Here's the thing, and I don't know, I know we're all actors and we're all artists in this room. For those of you who are just starting on this journey, have you had that moment? And you can type a Y in the chat if you have, where you go home or you talk to your parents and they're like, "When are we going to see you at the Oscars? When are we going to see
Right.
you on the Tonys?" Right? Like everyone has, yep, everyone has that, right? That moment. Exactly, exactly, exactly. Here's the thing: we live. Yep, usually Thanksgiving. I love that. We live in a society as artists. Our society is a capitalist society, and whether you agree with that or not, it's your business. You do what you got to do. But artists in this country live constantly at the intersection of art and commerce. We rank our value often by how commercially successful we are. That's not true. That's a lie. If you worked your survival job today, and think about this, it's a survival job. It is the job you do to survive. So if you worked your job and you're able to eat that night, that's not you failing. That's you protecting your joy. That's you literally saying, my life and my livelihood are important to me. I'm going to do what I need to do. There was a kid who joined the cast of Ain't Too Proud, made his Broadway debut on Tuesday. We shut down for COVID on Thursday. This kid is now driving a UPS truck. All right. Now, here's the thing: incredible actor. And the question of, should we be subsidizing our artists more so that we can, that we don't have to make these choices? Big question that we should ask ourselves. However, so proud of this young man for being like, I have a family, I have a girlfriend, I have people that I need to take care of. I'm going to get a job. I'm not above anything. So I think that that's what it's always been for me, has always been this idea. And you get to a place, quite honestly, where even the jobs that you work are at a certain point, and I know this sounds strange, but they kind of become your 9 to 5s. Because I Hamilton is Lynn's dream. Lynn is my boss, and he's an amazing boss and an amazing man, and I love him. But I didn't write Hamilton. I have things I want to do. Do you know what I mean? Hamilton is how I make money so I can do what I want to do. So I think that that's putting it in that perspective of just understanding that we are all doing what we have to do so we can do what we want to do. And there's no shame in that. You are no less an actor because you wait tables. That does not take away from the fact that you are at Stella Adler getting one of the best acting trainings in the world with people like Joni, with people like Alethea. You have Alethea Phillips working here? Are you kidding me? It's the amount of resource that's in this room right now is out of control. So yeah, I just think we need to be better about not shaming ourselves for having survival jobs, and then we understand how to put them in our life, how to categorize them. They're what keeps us alive. That's important.
Thank you so much, Nick. Joanne, I don't know if you saw this. She wants to make sure you know that you, from her point of view, you were always a great
I
mover.
saw that and I was like, Joanne, I still am. I was like, you know what it is? And Joanne, you're very kind, but I was just always so gangly and I just never knew what to do with my limbs. And that's one of the things that I have to work on in Ain't Too Proud is they're always talking to me about don't cut off your lines. Like when you extend your arm, make sure your arm is fully extended. And that's a very weird thing for me because I'm used to like, as a tall, lanky guy, I'm used to like T-Rexing all the time, just keeping it down. But it's like, nope, stretch up. And oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right.
Very
So,
cool. Will McMahon, he's in our NYU program, says, howdy, very excited to be here. What would you say is the smartest purchase you've made as an actor thus far? That's a good question.
that's a great question.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to
Nicely
say
done, Will.
that's, yeah, really, really nicely done. So I'm going to say two things. I will say as just an actor, like film, TV, theater, I'd say the smartest purchase I've ever made. All the plays, all. I mean, I put them all in that one thing. I know it's kind of a crazy thing, but like reading every play I could get my hands on was super smart. As an actor who has found himself in musical theater, and I say found because like you have to understand, I never trained for this. This was not where I like saw myself. This was just what happened to happen. In fact, I will show you. I'm going to give you a little tour of my home. We're gonna go over here, guys, because I was just using them for rehearsal yesterday.
It's like our own episode of Cribs.
That's exactly right. You're on my cribs, guys. All right, this is like so bougie, but I'm showing you guys anyway. So these are my Normatec boots. Okay, right here. These things you probably can't see them in full, but essentially what these things do is save my life. So Burr, uh, Otis Williams, all these roles that I played in musical theater, like they kill your body. They really do. Like it's repetitive movement in shoes that are not made to do that. 8 shows a week for years at a time. And so I was like, I mean, when you get to a certain point, you hopefully have a good representation or yourself. If you don't have representation, you can do this yourself, but you make sure that you are getting things in your contract that will protect you. So like for me, it was massages. It was, you know, flying Sarah out to the tour. It was like things that like I just needed to keep my sanity. But what the Normatec boots do is that maybe some of you have heard of them. Basically, they flush the lactic acid out of your legs, and they get the blood flowing. So like what I will do is an intermission of Ain't Too Proud. I'll put those on for like 15 minutes and just like sit and like it's the weirdest sensation. It's like when you do the blood pressure thing. Imagine that, but your entire like lower body. And it is the only way that I've survived on Broadway for 9 years. It really has saved my butt because again, not a dancer, just somebody who can fake it and and makes it work. So Normatec boots, I'm putting those out there.
Cool.
If you ever get in a situation, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. You probably recall, Nick, at Adler, we always have many of our wonderful students are sometimes coming from abroad, and English is not always their first language, depending on for some of our students. And one of our first year students in the 3-year conservatory, Elios, asked, have you ever worked with a foreign actor, especially non-English speaker as a first language?
Yes.
Have you had that experience in your professional life yet?
Yes, and it's really wonderful when you do. We did oh my god, I'm gonna forget the name of this play. It was like this right when I graduated. It was a small play out of in Boston. Forgetting the name of this play, but it was really wonderful because it was a play where it was like a bunch of scenelets, and one of the scene that I had was actually a conversation between two people. It was a Spanish speaker and myself going back and forth, and his dialogue was entirely in Spanish. And I'd studied Spanish in high school, but like and so was able to kind of go through and break down this scene with him. But it was really a beautiful thing. It kind of reminds me of this. Especially talking Adler, which is the classical training you get here is magnificent, and the thing that I love is hearing people speak Shakespeare in language that's not royal pronunciation. hearing people speak Shakespeare in their language, in whether that's the actual language or just with their accent on that language, because it doesn't lessen it, right? We have to get beyond this idea that the sound of our voice is less or greater than. It's not. Everybody comes at it from wherever they're at. So I always love seeing actors from other countries, and with other languages find ways to put their stamp on whatever they're doing. Especially because like they hired you. So if they wanted somebody who didn't sound like you, they would have hired them, but they hired you. So what are you going to bring? You can only bring yourself.
Yeah. Very good. I know a lot of our international students can sometimes worry, oh gosh, can I achieve that dream of working in the US? And it's totally possible, right? And
Absolutely.
I know it's so nice to hear that. This is actually not a question, but it's so great, so I'm going to read it. Nick, you may have seen this, but Wendelin, who's in the second year of our 3-year conservatory, says here, this isn't exactly a question, but I was lucky enough to see Nick play Burr twice in Hamilton, as well as do a class and talk with him when I was in the Cleveland Playhouse Intensive Program in 2018. And Nick took the time to talk to me one-on-one. And one of my friends to speak to me and one of my friends at the stage door. That conversation was the first time I'd heard of Adler, and he took the time to encourage me to continue to write my own material and to keep acting. I just wanted to express my gratitude. Also on his insight approaching musical theater as Shakespearean. That's a great line. Also, his insight on approaching musical theater as Shakespearean has stuck with me. That's from Wendelin.
Wendelin, thank you.
Yes.
That is very sweet of you to remember. And I love Cleveland, by the way. Heinen's is to this day. Heinen's is this amazing supermarket that they have in Cleveland. That was one. It was one of the sets for the Avengers movie. I'm a huge Avengers fan, by the way, huge Marvel fan. And I went in this grocery store, and it was like, I mean, it's literally like stepping into the Coliseum. It has no reason to be as beautiful as it is, and yet it is. But I will say the stage door thing is something that means a lot to me, because before Adler, before NYU, I went to see Denzel Washington in Julius Caesar, and I was studying Antony and Cleopatra in school, and I was like 12 or 13 at the time, maybe 14, and I knew that Octavius Caesar was in both Antony and Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, and I had this. I just wanted to. I it was such a dumb. I mean, not a dumb question, but it was a question of like, I just wanted to know if the actor who played Octavius Caesar, had done any research about who he was in who he becomes in Antony and Cleopatra, to inform how he studied for Julius Caesar, which I'm sure he didn't. But Denzel comes out and everybody's screaming, and it's Denzel, he's doing his Denzel thing and whatever. Then this actor comes out, Kelly Alcoyne, who, if you guys watch Billions, he now plays Dollar Bill on
Oh
Billions.
yeah.
He's an incredible actor. Comes out, and I think he was my age at that time. And I asked him, it was like, he was, again, when you're doing a Broadway schedule, right? 8 shows a week, 2 on Saturday. This was a Saturday matinee, so he's got another one at night. That schedule will kill it. Like it's tiring. It's a lot. Like the last thing you want to do when you're on a 8-show week is like come out to the stage door. Like you want to stay in your dressing room and like sleep. And it's not about the fans are amazing, but like you also have to protect your body for doing this show. And Kelly came out, and he was like, you could tell, like, Denzel was getting swarmed. Nobody was really talking to him. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back inside. And I was like, hey, I had a question about, and I could see the fatigue in his face. I could see, but this man stood out there with me for like 20, 30 minutes talking about Julius Caesar. And I remember, and when I got Burr, which was kind of my big like thing, I tweeted at him and I was like, I don't know if you remember me, but like, I just want you to know, like, you stayed with me at the stage door, and that changed my life. And I want you to know that. And we're now like Twitter friends. Like we're like, we just talk, like, he's a great guy. But I care. I stage door every day that I have a show. Cause I'm just like, I don't want to miss that opportunity to like help someone out. Like he helped me out. You try to pass it along. So I'm glad that anything I said, Wendelin, meant anything to you. Yeah.
Thanks for that note, Wendell, and thank you so much. Richard Higgins of our first year in the 3-year conservatory asks, is there anything, what are you reading right now? Is there something you're reading right now?
I read, so I'm a writer as well, and I devour scripts. I devour them, and I love old scripts. I love like going back and seeing how people did. Right now, I'm on this binge, just watching wise of The West Wing. Which, if you haven't watched The West Wing, for the love of God, go watch The West Wing.
Greatest
It's
show ever.
greatest show ever. I would say second only to The Wire. The Wire is that's my heart. But The
Yeah.
West Wing is brilliant. And so I've been reading the scripts as I watch. I've also been I actually read The Wire a couple weeks back, the pilot script. Three Billboards. I'm a huge Martin McDonagh fan. I'm a huge Susan Laurie Parks fan. Um Trying to think who else. I love, so it's complicated because I love Mamet. I love Mamet. I also, and again, speaking bluntly, the the days of like the angry racist white man plays,
Mm.
um I'm kind of like a little over. What I would love to see, like I had this thought. I was like, yo, if Tessa Thompson doesn't play Richard Roma at some point,
Mm.
I will actually riot. I was like, that's the way to do it. Like, just do it all women Glengarry, like all races. That would be it. That would be the thing that I'd be like, yeah, that would be fun. Um, just not, just to see what would happen. Just to take a bunch of talented ladies and stick them on that text, I think would make the text palatable for me. Because it's beautiful text. American Buffalo, beautiful text. Has it aged the way that we might have hoped? Debatable to
Yeah.
me. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
The core feels right, but some of the ways that these characters treat those in other positions does not feel right.
Yeah. Giovanna asks if any piece of art could define your essence, a painting, sculpture, mythology, folklore, play, book, film, etc. What might that be? Ooh, nice one.
Tarantino. I'm a huge Tarantino is that's like my core. That's I'd say more than The Wire, more than Aaron Sorkin, who I freaking love. Tarantino, I think gets. I love stories that take people who shouldn't be in a room together, and you put them in a room together, and you just shake the room up, and
Yeah.
that's everything that he writes. And he's a master. He's a master of tension, right? Of stretching that rubber band, right? Putting a bomb underneath the floorboards and letting the audience know, but not the characters know. I love that.
Mm.
So that is, and I just love Western. I love the stealing from the Western genre. I just think he's fascinating, and I love words. I think that film sometimes gets a bad rap of because it is a visual medium. A lot of writers don't are scared of using words, but it's like we talk, like we're talking right now, and you guys are
Yeah.
writing with me right now. I love verbose writers. I love writers who love to play with language, and find the poetry in how people speak. And so yeah, Tarantino would be absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Do you mind if this is just Mike throwing this out there,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. I'm just curious what you said about David Mamet and Mark in Buffalo and,
Mhm.
not just David Mamet, of course, but other plays where over time sort of can be difficult given some of the terms that are used, some of the semantics, some of the ways certain characters are treated. And I've heard some folks recently suggest something similar about Tarantino. Do you see an overlap there? And do you think we might be saying something similar about him in the
So
future?
it's interesting to me because I think that whereas David Mamet is writing, this is what's tough. I don't know either of these men personally, so I'm not trying to make a psychological statement. And please do not take whatever I say as like, oh, Nick said it. This was who David Mamet was. I don't know David Mamet. I don't know Tarantino. I just love his work. What I do know is that for me, it comes down to a place of empathy.
Hmm.
I think Tarantino absolutely writes racist characters, but Tarantino writes racist characters with a point. his point is like the people of Pulp Fiction, save for maybe Butch, are not good people. Like that's the point. The Pulp Fiction as a movie, Reservoir Dogs as a movie, it was a commentary about the movies that came before it. Right? These are not, you're not supposed to root for Vincent Vega. Vincent Vega is, as much as like it's John Travolta and we love him because he's John Travolta, he's not a good person. Like Jules, Sam Jackson becomes a good person, but he's not a good person. Like these, there was a point to that. And also, and I know that because Tarantino has such an appreciation for black culture and black exploitation culture. These are the movies that he grew up on. So he's always, these are all homages. Like The Hateful Eight, I stand by this. The Hateful Eight is probably the best Trump era movie ever written. I think it's because it literally is about America stuck together. Like that's what the movie's about.
Mm.
Whereas David Mamet was writing, and again, I think it's brilliant writing, but he's writing about, it's punching down. That's what it is, right? You are looking at this, and you are, David Moss's whole tangent about Patels, right, in Glengarry, when he's talking about the people you can't sell to, Patels.
Yeah.
That serves no textual need except for to be just like a joke that all we, white men can laugh at. Do you know what I mean? Like the Patels in the phone book, like that's punching down. There's nothing about that contextually that serves any sort of need. Now Moss is supposed to be an asshole, but then again, like even Ricky Roma is saying things like that, and it's like that's the guy we're supposed to be rooting for. You know what I mean? Like it's just it all depends on the context, and so I don't think we're going to put Tarantino in the same group as Mamet, because I get more heart and I get more empathy from a Tarantino script. I love Mamet, but I just don't get that same empathy. I get somebody trying to show you how angry they are and show you how much to rage against, and it's like, yeah, but a lot of other people have to rage against a lot of other things, dude.
Sure. Yeah, I'm resisting the temptation to nerd out on Tarantino the rest of the talk. So I'm going to move on because I will fall into that trap. But Patrick Brandt, third year of our 3-year conservatories, asked, where did you improve the most during your time at Adler? What about since working in the quote real world? Then he puts in parentheses, was it the voice training, movement, technique? Is there something maybe in particular that you still find yourself learning and growing from?
Possibility. Adler, when I came into Adler, Alice Saltzman, who I don't think is here, but she was a teacher right up there with Alethea and Joanne and all these amazing people who defined so much of my technique. And Alice Saltzman, my first year, was like I remember, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget her voice in my head. I was doing like this, The Father by August Strindberg, and she was just like, "Faker, you're faking it." And just get on me about that, right? And I automatically in my Nik brain, I was like, "Oh my God, there's a right way to do the scene, and I'm missing it." She wasn't saying there's a right way to do the scene. It's not about finding the perfect scene. It's about connecting with partner, connecting with text, and getting something. And when you're not getting something, then it's masturbatory. And she was trying to get me on objective and on tactic. And in tactic, you can do anything. You can literally do anything you want as long as it gets you what you want, as long as it's driving the scene. And that, I think, is what Adler really instilled in me, was a sense of play, was a sense of like, yeah, we're not saying it has to be one thing or the other. Just do something to someone. Like stop, get out of your own head, to get out of your own, sense of actorisms, and just talk, just be with someone, be present. All the imagination work, all the technique was very helpful to just ground me in that. And so when I go out into the real world, right, and you have, with, especially with TV film, right, you get these scripts, you get these sides like 2 days before the audition, and you have to, kind of the trick of TV film is that whereas theater, we have 6 weeks to rehearse these things, TV, you got to come in, and that's you. So what are you going to go back to? Well, you're going to start to look at who this character is outside of the scene, right? It's. I always think of it that acting is what you want your partner to do, or theater is what you want your partner to do. Film and TV is what you want your partner to know. What do you want them to know about you, right? What do you want? So you have to go back into those things of creating and figuring out who you are in the given circumstance, and the covered entrance and all these things that, like, at Adler was like, you're like, oh my God, if they note me for a covered entrance one more time. But like now you're doing it, and it's
Right, right.
helpful, and you're, you have to go from the funeral scene to the wedding scene, and you have to know, all that stuff. So it really does, once this becomes your bread and butter, all these muscles that they're working so hard to get instinctually in you now, that's what's going to save you. That's what's going to help you keep the job. Because here's the other thing. We so many programs teach you how to get the job. So few teach you how to keep the job. And the way you keep the job is by keeping your work interesting, by keeping yourself interested in the work, right? Not being above the work, but always being able to meet it, always being able to come up with new ideas, right? Play. That's Adler. Adler was literally, we were dressing up as priests in Betsy's class, and then we were, running around as animals in Jason's class. Like it's play. That's I think how I've been able to keep these jobs is a sense of play.
Very cool. Thanks, Nick. Someone named Tom Oppenheim, you know him, our artistic director. He says, what does the civil rights movement mean to you in relationship to Ain't Too Proud? And do you feel that the play speaks to the moment we're in right now?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So one of the things that I if you make the mistake of following me on any sort of social media, you'll see that I do not mince my words when it comes to my socio-political beliefs, and I never will. And I think one of the tragedies that this country has faced, and many tragedies, but I really feel right now for all of our parents who went through the civil rights movement, because I think there's this sense from them that we did this. Why do we have to do it again? We already did this. We marched so that you didn't have to march. That's what they told us growing up, right? We did this so that you could have this, but it's still there. And one of the sad truths is that the fight for equal rights, whether it's race, sexual orientation, anything in this country, has so often been an aesthetic fight, a fight of aesthetics, a fight of what it looks like, as opposed to a reckoning with what the country is. And I'm not even talking about opinion. I'm just talking about factually what the country is. The fact that this outgoing president was trying to have a commission to eradicate the notion of the 1619 Project, to say that this country, like, trying to take the spotlight off of slavery, saying slavery happened, but we got over it, we fixed it. It's like it's all the white savior movies, right? It's like The Blind Side, where like Sandra Bullock comes in and helps a black football player, and all of a sudden race is solved. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that. and that's so often what we fall into in this country. And I think what I love about Ain't Too Proud as a show is that it doesn't mince words, and it shows, right, the character that I play, Otis. He's the only one that survived. All the rest of those guys are dead, and most of them are dead because of addictions they picked up coping with being black men in the 60s.
Mm.
And the show is very clear about that. You know what I mean? You see when these things start, when these traumas happen, and you see them internalize them, and then you see them bring them down. And it's really beautiful and sad. So I love that the show is in conversation with now, because it's the same thing. It took me a long time as a growing up where I did, like I did, to understand, um, that as a black kid in America, you're growing up in a state of trauma, of active trauma, right? My childhood was not spent as a childhood. My childhood was spent training my brain to be safe as an adult because the world was not safe for me. That does something. And I have a responsibility to undo that work for myself and the things that no longer serve me about that. But the nation has a responsibility to understand that, like, there are intrinsic things that are wrong here, you know I'm not trying to be anything but truthful, but I'm a black man and I've experienced this. Says nothing to the experiences of black women and women of color, right? That's a double whammy. Women in general, right? Already with women, where you active trauma, and then you add the fact that your skin looks different. That's a lot. So I am all for any show, and I'm very lucky to have been involved in many shows that try to not skirt around that fact. Um, and Ain't Too Proud is certainly one of those shows, and I was it also. And here's the other thing, on the flip side of it, I think the other brilliant thing that Dominique did was create a show that's unapologetically black. Like, it's just I mean, and not in the way of like, oh, it's the black show on Broadway, right? Because that's what they try to do, is box it in and be like, oh yeah, that's the black show. It's anyone can see the show and have a good time. But you will be inundated unapologetically with black culture in that show. Everything about it. It starts with a church organ. Like, from the moment you go, you're in you're in a world that is its own and isn't trying to slow itself down to explain it to you. This is just how it works in this world, right? That's refreshing, because that's how I felt so often. My favorite movie, I'm a genre guy. Jurassic Park, Hook, Pulp Fiction. I grew up on these films. Jurassic Park is my heart. I say that often. I really mean that with Jurassic Park. But Dr. Grant doesn't look like me. Dr. Ellie Sattler doesn't look like me. Do you mean, like, it feels, whiteness as a concept is something that is so deceptive because it's so normalized that you think it's universal, but it's not. It's not my story. Where's my story? That in itself is radical. And I say that to everyone. You just being you is a revolutionary notion. Do you know what I mean? So just be yourself. And I think that's part of what Ain't Too Proud preaches. Preaches. Um, on a really lighter note, I see that Jess Nurse is in here. And actually,
Yes.
I made a bet with her that I would say her name 5 times in this Zoom call. So I'm just going to get it out of the way really quick. Jess Nurse, Jess Nurse, Jess Nurse, Jess Nurse, Jess Nurse, Jess Nurse. Now she owes me $5. Just want to say that.
Hi, Jessica Nurse. Good to see you. Good to, well, sort of see you in the chat. Emily Cooper, first year in our 3-year conservatory, she speaks here about the difficulty that many folks, including her, have experienced being authentic in musical theater,
Mm.
and is asking, is there an aspect of Adler training that you perhaps found useful in overcoming that in the world of musical theater?
Yeah. So, let's break down, why is musical theater inauthentic? Musical theater is inauthentic because singing can be presentational. Singing can be about the song, right? Not what the song is communicating, not what the story is, but what your voice sounds like on it. We listen to these cast album recordings and we love the riff that Adina does in Wicked. I've never seen Wicked, by the way. I've heard it's good. But we love the riff that Adina does in Wicked. And so when we come in with that audition song, we come in and try to copy her riff, right? Like it's really funny. Like, if you ever sat behind the table at a musical theater audition and it's like a popular musical, you can literally know which bootleg or cast album the auditioners listen to based on the riffs on that song, right? And my thing is, I'll use Hamilton as a perfect example. I think that Lynn's brilliance, which does not need me to add to it in any way, but I think one of the things that you find very quickly in Hamilton is, you have a lot of people who come in who are used to, like, doing what we call singing down, right? They come in and they just smash the song, and they're like, their voice is going all over the place, and it sounds gorgeous, and they're able to hit notes that, like, make no sense. And then Alex Lackamore, who's the music supervisor and the orchestrator, will say, "Hey, that sounded beautiful." Don't ever do that again. Because the thing, oh Tom, what's up? The thing is the thing that I think hits with that is that in Hamilton, um, every note, every word is text. None of it is like song. It's text. So every note, every word has the potential to get you what you want. So you actually can't sing down because you have to sing to get what you want. I think that's the difference. The musical theater, there are musical theater performers who do this, and you can see them. Patti LuPone, there's not a wasted note. There's not a note that is not for a purpose when she sings. Um, trying to think who else does this brilliantly. Uh, Michael Cerveris, brilliant. I mean, there's people I could list on and on. Leslie does it, and he's amazing at it. Just that focus, where it's not about the presentation. And again, let's accept that like musical theater came out of the cabaret, not the cabaret, the oh my god, not cabaret. What's the word I'm looking for? Somebody write it down. With it starts with a C.
Vaudeville.
Vaudeville. Oh, it starts with a V. I'm an idiot. Vaudeville. Let's say like, guys, see, I'm a mess. But the vaudeville tradition, right? So that is a presentational tradition. But now, like one of my favorite things, I went to see my buddy Jordan took over playing Evan Hansen right before the shutdown. I went to see him, and I had like heard, everyone does that little riff that the kid, waiting through the window, whatever he does, and it's amazing. We all love it. So I was going to see, I was like, I don't really want to see this show. I don't want to see like just pop singing for about teenage life for like 2 hours. I go to this show, y'all. I am weeping. I'm sitting there like, yo, this is uncomfortable. Like this is like real. They got in there. And here's the other thing, because it goes to the writing too. So many musical theater writers write to the song, right? They write with the idea that the song is the most important thing in the show. So the scenes don't matter. Dear Evan Hansen, I don't know how they wrote it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they wrote the play first and then said, where do songs fit in this play? Because every song has a dramatic point, gets you from point A to point B, like a scene, right? A scene works in a funnel. There's the thesis, top of the scene, and then you ask the question, and then the end of the scene is the answer, even if the answer is a non-answer, right? You funneled down. That's how every song in that show works. Presents a thesis and then explores it throughout the song. That's good writing. That's writing you can act on. So that's what I try to do. I just like Wendelin said, I try to treat it like Shakespeare. I just accept that it's heightened text, but it's my job to make it conversational. It's my job to make it real. And how do I do that? By fighting for what my character wants. Yeah.
Okay. The one and only Alethea Phillips asks, what are the qualities that you are drawn to in a scene partner, acting partner, or collaborator?
It's got to be like jazz. You do. So I'm very playful, and I actually get in trouble, like not real trouble, but like I'm a huge prankster backstage and on set. I cannot for the life of me take myself seriously. I love to just goof around and be an idiot. But I do this because what helps me is a playful work environment. My buddy Joseph, who was my Hamilton for 2 years, we both came in. I had done the Broadway show for a while. He had done the Chicago company for a while. So we both came in with a very cool understanding of his characters, which changed once we started to work with each other, right? Our characters changed to shift for each other. But it was great because we had done the work, and then we on stage were able to let it go, and we're just able to tennis back and forth. And those moments of just that ping pong where we're like in it and like we're both throwing things back, and it might not be what we did yesterday, but like there's just a trust there that I'm not going to let you fall and you're not going to let me fall. It really feels like jazz. It feels like we're just in this vibe. So yeah, I would say that. I'd say so: preparedness, not taking yourself too seriously, trust. Yeah, and I'll say on the not taking yourself too seriously note, a sense, an understanding that like we are very fortunate to have these jobs, but it is a job. I need someone I don't like working with people for whom this is their entire life. They can't see a world outside of this. Me and Joseph, we come in and do the tavern scene, right? So Aaron Burser, Burr puts his arm around Hamilton. Fools who run their mouths off, wind up dead. They walk into the tavern, and then our mics are off, and we're watching this tavern scene. Now, again, we've been doing this show for years, so that would be our check-in time. Hey, how was your day, man? How you doing? Where you going after the show? Are you good? Everything good? And then we go back into the scene. I need that because if we're not like I don't need to be your best friend, but I just need to like connect with you as a human being, especially if we're going to be doing that for so long. Um, so yeah, I those are I think the three key things that I need.
Mm. Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Alethea. Um, another scoundrel, Joanne Edelman. That's scoundrel. Hello, Joanne says some actors feel they should not say certain offensive words. Lynn Nottage uses a lot of these words. How do you feel about speaking all the words in the way that they were originally written? The
I
conversation going on about all that nowadays.
Yeah, no, I think that you have to. I'd say two things. I'd say you have to know the context. Context is everything, and what the writer is trying to achieve, and that's why I think that it's important for everyone to try writing at some point in time. Jess Nurse is who's another brilliant writer as well, and I think it just gives you a sense of just knowing that like what you're trying to do with words are never wasted when you're a writer. It's very specific. If you're doing it like not like you're supposed to be doing it, but if you're doing it with any care, every word is specifically chosen for a point. So if Lynn Nottage is using these words, I'd ask what effect is the word supposed to have. If in fact you have this job and you're truly not comfortable with it, I mean, I to me, you go to the playwright and you get the permission, or you say it. Because I mean, if I'm there, especially in theater, right? Film TV is a little different because it's the editor has the power. But if I'm on stage, that's the writer's room. That's it's and we can collaborate, and if it's a new piece, we can talk about, well, why did you choose this word here, and can I mess around with it? But to me, the writer is queen. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do what the writer is asking me to do, and yeah, because to me, and that's me. That's me. I think everyone has to come to their own judgment about that. But for me, I just know what it took for that writer to get those words on that page, and I'm not gonna throw them out. And also because writing is music. Do you mean like you don't? It truly is the sound of things. Not saying. I just did a short film, and one of the actors didn't say it in the way that I had written it, and I didn't call them out on it. But you do lose a little bit of that music, and it's like changing a note in a composition. It's not going to sound the same. Um, so I try to be as respectful as I can of what they wrote.
Okay. Just everyone, thank you so much. We got more questions popping in here. If I skip your question, it's only because I can't get to all of them, I don't think. And Nick may have addressed your question already to some degree. But
Okay.
sorry, Nick. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to jump in and say I'll put my handle in the chat. I do not have a problem with like being DM'd as long as like you slide into my DMs. Like I will absolutely answer any question. So like feel free to DM me afterwards and ask me, and I'll happily answer. No issue at all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much. Chris Dover asks, how do you foresee the industry changing long-term in a post-COVID world regarding, in-person auditions, rehearsals, et cetera? Any impulse on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussions happening right now. Here's what I can say. I think if there's any good thing to come out of the destruction of this summer, it's that people are thinking about things. People are having conversations about things. I don't want, I love Broadway. I love theater. I don't want it to go away, but I do want us to recognize that there was a lot of things that we were doing that weren't serving us as an industry. And So on a very macro sense, I really want things to change in that way, and I know that that might mean a lot of sacrifice. That might mean a lot of people bowing out, or at least taking a very hard look at what they've done. But that's just necessary to us continuing as a species, let alone as artists in theater. In terms of the auditioning and stuff, I think it's actually this beautiful thing. Like self tapes are huge. You know what I mean? Like and the power of a self tape to be able to choose which cut you want to send to these people. That's amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like the idea that you don't have to be in the room um, gives you a power, and I think that we will definitely see where that takes us. But I also I want to remind you guys, like, I know that so many people have asked. I know this might not have been your question, but I just do want to say this. So many people have asked me recently, like, what's going to happen to theater? Is theater gone forever? And I just have to, it's a scary notion, but I have to laugh and think, like, we have been gathering in dark spaces and listening to stories since the beginning of time. Like, there's no way that we're letting it go. There's just no way. And the economics of commercial New York theater will absolutely have to change. There's no way. We have to adjust. But the need for that kind of storytelling is essential. Like it's not gone. It's not gone. We're figuring out ways now, and we're seeing that these ways are wonderful. But like, it's not that me doing this Q&A with you, like, it's not the same as being in a studio at Adler and like I can feel you in the space and we can. This is a wonderful facsimile, but we need that. So I think, and I think that being willing to fight for that, I think will become very important. Yeah.
When you say kind of sarcastic, when you say things that in terms of ways the industry might change and things that maybe haven't been serving us, do you mean in terms of the number of people maybe that are squeezed into particularly commercial theater, and are those the types of things you mean?
Well, yeah, there's several things. I mean, yeah, in terms of that, number one, the whole idea that commercial theater is the be all end all. The idea that Broadway is when you've made it needs to go out the window right now.
Mm.
You're all in Stella Adler studying to be actors. Congratulations, you're actors. Do you mean you don't need a Broadway credit to, or a TV credit or a film credit to say that you've made it? You don't. You have made it because you're doing it. And so the amount of resource that we send to regional theaters, to hometown theaters, I think that needs to be upped. Also, the racial politics, the gender politics of our industry is a huge thing. There are a lot of people who have been able to say and do a lot of very hurtful things in our industry that need to be held accounted for or accountable. And and we have this amazing opportunity to kind of do that, to kind of investigate who we were and who we want to be. And then there's the very semantic thing of, like, in terms of Broadway, our theaters are not COVID safe. Like, they're very tight, they're very small. We need to do things to make them COVID safe, or at least safe for a post-COVID world. And so that's going to be a huge part of the discussion as well. Um, just that idea of being with, like, adapt or you die, like, change, and make it inclusive. I think that's my biggest thing. I'm fighting for an inclusive theater, where everybody knows that they have a place.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Nick. This is from Raul in our evening conservatory. As a person of color, what advice do you have regarding getting started in while navigating the current climate?
Yep. So I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Wendelin, and it's what I tell every actor, but right, 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 especially as a person of color. Because I think the thing that strikes me is that we are in this space now. I was talking to this guy, Tarek, who was in Freestyle Love Supreme. He's on the Amber Ruffin show now. He's a writer. He wrote in 2015. He wrote this essay about how nobody wanted to see black horror movies, right? This was before Jordan Peele, before Get Out and Us. And now there's a wave of black horror movies. And but there are other writers trying to write other things other than black horror movies. Nobody's going to tell your story until you tell it. And I promise you, George Lucas didn't write Star Wars thinking, oh, I want to write a movie about that's going to sell millions of dollars. He's like, I love the hero's journey and I love Buck Rogers, and let me write a story that makes me happy. He wrote a story for himself. People follow your joy. Your joy attracts people. So I always say write that, and write that knowing that it might take a second for people to see your genius. You mean like give yourself the space to grow as an artist and give people the space to find you? Do you mean don't be upset that it doesn't happen right away? Know that there will be, I'm hoping that the work that I and others have done makes it a little easier for you as an artist of color. There were things that I experienced in my coming up that I truly hope you never have to experience. But even if you do, know that they can't stop you. You will make your art because it's the art that you need to make. And I that has always saved me going into these auditions, knowing that like, even if you don't hire me, I'm still going to do what I do. Even if I had never met any of the people I've met or done any of the things I've done, I would still find a way to tell my stories because that's what I do. It's not a choice. I will work the 7 shifts at City Sports, and then when I come home, I will write, and I will call a friend on the phone, and we will do a scene over Zoom. I'll do my cork and mirror and get my breath right, my voice and speech right. You mean like, yeah.
Okay. Thomas says, spiraling off of the white saber movies and other problematic tropes, do you have any advice for maintaining artistic integrity while also surviving the intersection of art and commerce? How do we not feel overwhelmed by the scarcity and not jump at every subpar opportunity?
Thomas, that's such a great question. I'm very glad you asked that. The trick of commerce and capitalism is to make you think you don't have enough time. I'll say that again. The trick of commerce and capitalism is to make you think that you are running out of time. Hamilton is literally about that. The idea that you are running out of time. This man spends the entire play trying to build this thing that will secure his legacy when what was really important was the love he shared with his family. And that's a story that's been told time and time and time again. But how you avoid the subpar is knowing your worth, knowing that you are worth par work. And I think that but I also think that it's the balance of, when you're younger, when you're getting, or not even young in age, but just when you're starting your career off, there's going to be things you say yes to that aren't your perfect jobs. Do you know what I mean? Doing children's theater in the back of a 9 foot by 13 foot van was not my perfect job, but it was a job. And I took it and I enjoyed it. And I think you have to trust your gut with those things, right? It's not about saying yes to everything. It's about saying yes to the things that move you, the things that you'll know when you get that thing. You're like, ooh, you know what? I'm kind of proud of that. And even if no one ever sees it, even if it doesn't make it anywhere, I'm proud that I did this. That's the thing. And fostering those standards early. And again, understanding that just because if you turn down work because it was like really not vibing with you for whatever reason, and you have to work that survival job to survive, there's no shame in that. You did not fail. I think in essence, what I'm trying to tell you is get the idea of failure out of your head. There's no failing. You only fail if you stop. You're not failing because you're alive and you're thinking and getting all ideas of success and failure out of your head. You're already ahead of the game.
Greta says here, I saw Ain't Too Proud to Beg. It was lovely to see this wonderful story with all this great music that I grew up with. My question is, how do you feel that innovations in set design to include a lot of digital effects versus a more traditional approach How does that affect you? Does it change your approach at all as an actor?
These are great questions, guys. So Des McAnuff, who directed Ain't Too Proud. Funny story about Des. Des is actually the godfather of one of the Dude Bros, Luke Humphrey, who I met in NYU, and that's how my career started because of Des. Because Des took me and Luke out to lunch like one day after Adler. Had no idea who this man was. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna keep in touch with me. 4 years later, he was directing Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway. I was like going in for that. I was like, oh my God, Des. He's like, oh yeah. And he's like, I can't cast you in this, but I got another thing. And that's how I got La Jolla, was because of that. Des loves technology. A Des show is a technological feat, and Ain't Too Proud is no exception. We have, it's like their set designer was like, oh yeah, Hamilton has one turntable. We're gonna do two and a treadmill and display, and it's like you will literally die on that stage. What it forces you to do, though, I think, and this is how I would answer this question in total. You have to trust that stillness is enough. You have to trust that, when they tell you to stay there, even if you're feeling like, oh, but I can't get across this point if I stay here. I have to stay here because A, if you don't stay here, your head will be taken off. B, because you can do that thing that you're scared you can't communicate. And how in terms of it versus traditional, I think there's room for Our Town, and I think there's room for Ain't Too Proud, right? I love the innovations. I love that we can make story clearer through projection, right? You can, all of a sudden, you don't have to have the set because you have if we're in a riot scene, you have an abstract image of the riots behind us, and you know where we are. You have fires burning. We know there's a fire. Harry Potter, the Cursed Child wouldn't be possible without the innovations of technological theater. But there's also something really magical about people just standing there and talking, you know? So I think the key is that we don't try to exclude either. I think we have to embrace both. And in terms of how it affects my process as an actor, I just, when you're in a play that has no set and you're free to just park and bark, you enjoy it. You do what you got to do. But when you're on a technical set, what I have to do is I have to, like with Ain't Too Proud, I spent like weeks just with the script because as you saw, like it's literally just me talking for 2.5 hours. So it's like, let me dig into this as much as I can. Let me get all the questions. Let me know this like the back of my hand so I can play, so I can have that jazz. And then walk through with the director and the stage manager and be like, okay, where do I need to be for each of these moments? What is this? What is this? What is this? And when you're, especially when you're replacing as a lead, they give you that time. They give you that time to really, what is your process? They'll meet you at your process, because they want to set up the best show for you. And the first couple of weeks in the show or days in the show, I'd say were crazy because talk about technical and digital. Like I have all departments coming in at my half hour as I'm getting my clothes on, warming up, doing all that stuff. Like, hey, can you give us a little bit more on this line? Can you step over here on this? Like, it's like just notes. So like, there's a lot going on in your head, but I just try to do what they ask, but then take that 5 minutes before and just reground myself in character and want and tactic. Come back to that. And then the rest doesn't feel as constrained. It's freeing.
Okay. Ebony asks, do you get tired of theater productions and films that capitalize on Black pain? What would you like to see more? What would you like to see more of when it comes to Black stories?
Yeah, I do. I hate it. There was a whole period of like, the distinguished slave, 12 years a slave and all this stuff. And when Django came out, I was so happy. I was like, let's go. Right. Because there's just a different way of approaching it. I think there's room for all of it. Exploiting Black pain, though, I think is a very specific thing. And I think that, what I'll say to that is I want to see more stories about Black people that aren't told through the white gaze. That's what I want. There's room for stories about Black pain. What I want are Black producers and Black writers and Black directors and Indian writers and Indian directors and transgender directors and producers. You mean like everyone should have a chance to tell their story, and then we can have the gambit, because it's not about one genre is bad or one thing is bad. It's about when that's what everything becomes, because you're trying to sell it, as opposed to opening the door so that everybody has a chance to throw their story in there. That's the danger. Not trusting that a story told by somebody who isn't you will sell. It will. And as we've now seen, it sells. So I just think we have to embrace the uniqueness. I think we can have stories about Black pain, but only if we also have stories about Black joy.
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Nick. Ashley says here, one of my favorite quotes is, "The personal is political." I believe that's why being yourself is a revolutionary act. Thank you so much for affirming that, she says. Touching on race, have there ever been any moments where your race felt like a barrier in your path? And if so, how have you used what you've learned in technique to get beyond that and break through to get to the depth of the role to embody a character that you are portraying?
Yeah, absolutely. A bunch of times, it. I can't tell you the damage that was done to me as a kid by everyone who told me I couldn't do that because I'm Black. I cannot tell you the amount of psychological trauma that I've had to work through, and the lack of self-worth that I had and have had to really buttress because of that. Um, so short answer, yes, that has hit me very hard in my life. Um, but what technique has helped me do? First of all, once you book the job, like, right, the audition, like, so, and I'm sure you've heard this, but this is something I firmly believe. Auditioning as actors, auditioning is our job. The gig is the vacation, right? When we get the gig, we're doing exactly what we want to do, and we're getting paid. We're getting paid. And if we're not getting paid, we talk to our union. We should be getting paid. When you're on the gig and you're doing the thing, you first of all accept, okay, they hired me, so I must be good to do this. And then when it comes to a role that, like, whether it's a role that, doesn't, like, I just, at a certain point, you just have to trust that, like again, you are enough. I did Shylock in my junior year of college at classical. I am, I'm not Jewish. I do not have a daughter. I do not deal in ducats. Um, but I do know what it's like to be ostracized. I do know what it's like to take anger and do questionable things with my anger. So I just come back to the human truth. And I also, there's a drive in me, every, everything that I've accomplished, I got to be honest with you guys. There's absolutely the little voice in me that's like, ooh, I hope all those kids who call me the N word can see me now. I hope they can. I want them to. That anger can be a motivating factor, and you have to let that anger go. But I don't deny that it's been fuel to my fire. Be like, when they told me I can't, oh, actually, watch. Give me 10 years. Watch what I'll do. You know, and like, I think what I have to work on now is taking that pressure off, because it serves me getting up the ramp, but now we're on the highway. I need different fuel. I mean, that doesn't serve me anymore. What do I need now? And what I need now is love. I need to love myself. You know.
One thing that you've spoken about this a little bit, but Wendolyn here wonders if you could maybe expand on a little bit more. Finding that balance between the professional and personal life in a profession like acting that is so intrinsically personal.
Yeah.
Can you give any advice there?
Absolutely. You got to find those things that pull you back down to earth. You got to find those things that have nothing to do with you. You know, it was so hard because, especially doing Hamilton on the road, I would come home and it would take me and Sarah about 2 weeks to kind of find each other again, because I'm in Hamilton land. I'm in this world where I'm getting paid six figures to travel and do the show and play this role and invest every ounce that I have. And and Sarah just wants to go to dinner and listen to some jazz music. You know what I mean? And like it's I can't bring the work home. I have to let it go. And I also, for me, that journey has been about like understanding the work will always be there. And then I can't survive without the personal. The personal helps the professional. It's, I can't secure your own oxygen mask before you assist the child next to you. I can't do that work until I'm okay myself. Because I'm plumbing the depths of myself. I have to know what's going on in here to put it out there. Um, Therapy is huge. If you aren't seeing a therapist, I don't care who you are, please consider it. Please consider talking to someone about anything, because we all have scars. And I say that to everyone. Everyone, if you are alive, you have scars and you have things that you just should be aware of. And that helps you separate the personal from the professional. Also, when it comes to auditions, and auditions that I don't get, I have a tradition that helps me put that down, and that is I get a big old thing of pizza every audition. So, like, for instance, I can tell you guys this because I didn't get it. I was testing for Dexter, for the new Dexter reboot, and like it was down to me and one other guy, and that one other guy got it, and I was like, cool, the dollies, what's up? Like I literally that day was just like pepperoni, please, because like you need to just take care of yourself, and sometimes this thing will beat you up. It will beat you up. So what do you do to just come down from that? Is huge. Makes all the difference in the world.
Um, Adriana asks, what is your go-to exercise or practice before an audition that helps you get grounded and shut out any self-doubt?
Breath. I breathe. And I for me, I pray. I was raised a preacher's kid. My mom went from being a news anchor to she became a preacher, and her father had been a preacher, and his father had been a preacher. So prayer is huge for me. But also, I think preparation is everything. I think that so much of what helps me with self doubt is like knowing the material, just knowing what I'm talking about. Like it really, those auditions that you've gone into, and it's like, you're just kind of pulling it out of your ass. Like for me, I really try to stick hard to when as soon as I get it, like, and I'm a huge procrastinator, by the way, so I fail at this all the time. But as soon as I get the material, like, really just going through it and trying to have it in me, um, you know. And also, again, I just want to say, remembering that my success as an actor has nothing to do with whether or not I'm hired in that room today. Now, I might not eat. I might have to find another way to eat or pay my bills, but it doesn't make me less of an actor because I didn't book a gig. I can't tell you how many gigs I haven't booked. You know what I mean? Like guys, I'm like, it's so crazy. What we're devoting our lives to is insane. So we need to take that idea off. I think that's the biggest thing. I'd say. Yeah.
Vivian from the NYU program asked about your choice to spend some time in the classical studio after a couple of years at Adler, and why focusing on Shakespeare in particular for that semester or year, whatever it may have been, where that choice came from, and maybe what the usefulness of that looking back.
Actually, Adler was the reason that I chose to go to classical, because I really wanted to dive as deep as I could in classical work. Adler had given me, I had taken my love of Shakespeare and like, through, I mean, you spend 1 minute with Jimmy Tripp or Tom or any of these guys, and you just understand that this text is something that you can explore for the rest of your life and never understand. And there's something about the classical approach that I loved. I loved the idea of just treating, I mean, the classical approach really is very Mamet in its essence. It's treating Shakespeare like Mamet. It's like, what if these characters aren't speaking poetry? What if this is exactly what they are intending to say? These words are the exact words they choose to say in that moment, so that every word has meaning. And the downside of that is some people can come out of classical feeling very robotic. My lucky thing was that I had had the Adler training to make me a human being first. So then you put me in a text-based class, and I already have my human being part. Now I'm focusing on text. And that was it for me. And it was also, quite frankly, I could have stayed in Adler all 4 years and been perfectly happy. But also, you're paying how much money to go to NYU? And like, like it's for me, it was this thing of like, let me explore, let me see. But like again, when people ask me where I went to, the first studio that I say is Adler. I'm an Adler kid. Absolutely 100%. That's where my foundation was. That was my foundation. So it wasn't about anything bad about Adler. It's just like I just wanted to see what would happen. Like I don't know. I'm just throwing things in the fire and seeing what happens.
Right. Nik, this has been so great. We're gonna, believe it or not, we've already been going about 90 minutes. We're just gonna go with one final question here for the night, and thank you everybody for your questions. And Molly has the last question. Doing a show 8 days a week for months on end, what's your go-to technique for keeping it fresh? And how often do you get off stage and realize you weren't fully present?
All the time. All the time to the second part. Tommy Kail, who directed Hamilton, my technique with him, or what he described to me, we'd have what he called the target metaphor. He's like, great. So you sometimes, and also I raise my hand. I have ADHD, so that's part of it too. My mind goes in a million places. I have to keep it focused. But like, what would often happen with Hamilton was Tommy would give me a note, and I would take the note so far that I would end up like, if this is the target, I would end up on the like I'd be go from here to like the other side of the target, complete 180, and then you have to give me the opposite note to bring me back and like stick it. So there's so many, like, all that to say, you can't help the fact that you will get distracted and bored in the long run of a show. How do you keep it present? Coming back to text, coming back to character, coming back to want. And also just the understanding how lucky you are. If you are able to get into one of these shows that have these long runs, that's a blessing. That's a blessing. And there's three things that I would say you do. Number one, if you get into one of these long run shows, save your money. Save it. Please, the best thing I can say to you, and I know we're closing, talk to a financial advisor at some point in your time as an actor. Know what money is and how to work it. That's so important. Number two, on a long running show, get to know your fellow actors. You're going to keep it fresh because you're going to come in with different things on different days. And number three, if you're on a show like Hamilton, people paid $500 minimum to come see you. Mm. Your job is to keep it fresh. That's your job. Like I don't take myself seriously, but I take my job so seriously because I know what you sacrificed to come see me. I'm not going to give you any less than my best. So I hope that answered that. That those things keep me present.
That's such a great way to end, Nik. Thank you so much. And I know I speak, Nik, for everybody at Adler when I say just how happy we are for you and proud we are of you. And we can't thank you enough for doing this tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you guys. Thank you everybody for coming. You saw Nik put his thing in there if you want to DM him. And Nik, again, thank you so much. I'm going to clap on behalf of everyone. Thank you. Nik Walker, everyone.
Love you guys. Stay in touch. I'm always here.
That was so great. And Tom's back. Hey, Tom.
I'm back, but I don't know how to see how do I see? Oh, show sub view. Oh, I got to put my light on. There
he is.
I got to mellow this. Just there you go. Oh, that was fantastic, Nik. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
That was so great.
Thank you for having me. It really means the world. It means the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was so great, Nik. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And please give our love to Sarah too when you talk to her.
Absolutely. I'm about to call her right now, so I will definitely give you her love or give her your love, and you can talk. I know I'll see you all around.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do this again and again, man.
You got it, sir.
you know, in the pre-vaccine world and in the post-vaccine world. You speak out of the heart of the studio in really an extraordinary way. And I was just sitting there listening and sort of feeling the soul of Adler coming through you. So thank you so much.
Hey, you guys set me on this journey, so thank you. All right, y'all. I'll talk
Bye,
to
Nick.
you
Have a good night.
too. Bye.
And turn the gray sky blue.